based on the texts. How would the author of text 2 most likely respond to the assertion in the underlined portion of text 1? Text 1. The ancient Greek poet Homer is widely considered the author of two epic poems, the Iliad and the Odyssey, which recount the events of the Trojan War and its aftermath. However, some scholars have argued that Homer was not a single individual, but a collective name for a tradition of oral poets who composed and performed the epics over several centuries. These scholars cite the lack of reliable historical information about the life and identity of Homer, as well as the apparent contradictions in the plot and style of the epics. According to this theory, the Iliad and the Odyssey are the products of a fluid and evolving oral culture, not of a fixed and coherent literary vision. So here I'm just going to say Homer was not one person. Abbreviating, right? Homer, the author or the poet known as Homer, was not really a single person, but a group of people. What would text 2 say about that? A recent study by a team of researchers used statistical methods to analyze the linguistic patterns and vocabulary of the Iliad and the Odyssey, comparing them with other ancient Greek texts. The study found that the two epics are remarkably consistent in their use of language, and that they are significantly different from other texts attributed to the same period. The study concluded that the Iliad and the Odyssey are most likely the work of a single author, or at least of a very close group of collaborators. So here I'll say Homer probably was one person, because that's really the key point of contention here, whether Homer was one person or not. So, answer choice A. By noting that the argument does not account for the influence of later editors, no. There's nothing at all about later editors, and so we don't want to pick that. We have to have evidence that we can point to if we're going to say, oh, this is how they would most likely respond. And there's no evidence that they would say anything about editors. B. By challenging the argument with the findings from the linguistic analysis of the epics, which support the theory of a single author or a close group of collaborators. And here, this is a little bit of an exception, because usually in your correct answer, you don't have a distinct phrase, but maybe we could say it's not the most distinct phrase. Anyway, that's still somewhat rare. So that would make me wary or cautious, but the rest of it really is good. I mean, it connects to the main disagreement. And it was based on findings from linguistic analysis, statistical methods to analyze the linguistic patterns and vocabulary. So everything else about it is good, and so I think that is correct. But let's check C and D. By critiquing the argument for overlooking the historical evidence that Homer was recognized. Nope. That's not the kind of evidence that they would point to. They're going to point to this statistical analysis, not the fact that people in the past recognized him and celebrated him as a real poet. Yeah, that's not relevant. And then D, by confirming that the differences between the epics and other texts attributed to the same period support the theory that the epics reflect an evolving oral tradition. No, this is what the author of the first passage says, but the second passage does not say that. So D would signal that there was a basic agreement between the two passages, but that's not what we see. They would challenge that argument and say, nope, Homer was either one person or a very close group of collaborators, and not some more amorphous group like what is mentioned in text 1.